Hi everyone, it's Sean Stevenson. Welcome to my review of The Heart and the Broken Compass by Last Winter. Last Winter is a pop-punk band. I'd actually kind of generalize them as rock because on their newer album especially they've incorporated a lot of hard rock and they have a lot of different elements. So generally they're a rock band. The Heart and the Broken Compass is their third album, and it's their first album with their new singer Ian Dempsey. I'm not actually sure when the album came out. I got 3 different release dates from different websites, but it came out sometime between the 22nd of July and August 2nd of 2011. To start off, the artwork for the album is very simple. It's nice. I wouldn't say it's a draw for the album. It's not very interesting, nothing really to look into. So it doesn't really pull anyone into checking out the album, but it's not terribly boring. It's not detracting from the album in any way. Alright, next up I'll talk about the lyrical content of the album. I like that the lyrics were continuous with their previous album, Under the Silver of Machines. On Under the Silver there were a lot of metaphorical references to, I guess, like constellations or astronomy sort of things, like there's the song Vela to Norma and Milky Way and stuff like that. So I like that the new singer especially kept going with that. It really helped with the continuity of the band. On this album there's songs like Neptune and the Northern Lights, things like that. So that was a nice touch, I thought. Overall, though, the lyrics were a bit immature. In this genre where pretty much all the lyrics deal with things like love and relationships, you can't avoid that, but I think they could have been better done even with the metaphors. When there weren't the metaphors, it was kind of cheesy almost. So I think with a bit more lyric writing practice, that could be better. Like I mentioned, the typical themes that this album talks about are things like love and betrayal, which they're kind of stereotypical of the genre, but I think that this album is made bearable by the use of metaphors, which I already talked about. As far as the vocals go, Ian Dempsey is not really as comfortable in the upper register as their previous singer Cameron had been. And that's kind of a big thing for bands like this, is the upper register. I've noticed that the higher parts of the vocals kind of sound strange sometimes, and they tend to be slightly detuned, slightly flat. So overall, it's not as strong as Cameron's vocal performance was. But Ian does have some good things to offer as opposed to Cameron. Cameron's vocals were kind of cleaner and really added to the poppy side of the band, which wasn't bad. That was a nice sound for the band. But Ian's vocals are a bit grittier, so it kind of adds to the other side of the band, the heavier side. Some parts kind of reminded me of like Lost Prophets and stuff. So some more hard rock bands like that. Almost kind of new metal sounds, I guess, at a couple parts. But I think that's really good, bringing out that side of the band. And finally, there were a couple screams here and there on the album, which were really nice. They're fitting. They didn't throw the screams in needlessly. They're where they fit, and it actually adds to the song. So I think that was very effective. Alrighty, the instrumentation, which is one of my favorite things about Last Winter. It's probably what got me into the band so much. The instrumentation on this album is definitely on par with the last album, Under the Silver of Machines. The guitar parts are really nice. There's lots of nice chords, not just stereotypical chugging or whatever, eighth notes. There's lots of nice textures between clean guitars and distortion guitars, lots of nice layers in that sense. There's heavier riffs, like I mentioned, kind of a new metal sound here and there, but there's also lots of lighter riffs, and that contrast is very effective. Finally, with the guitar, there's some nice effects, like in the Northern Lights, it starts off with a delayed guitar riff, so they don't throw effects in all over where it's not needed. It's very effective use of effects, I guess. So the instrumentation in that way worked out really well. The drums are fun. Myself, I like to drum along with this stuff. It's nothing insanely special because it is, rock or whatever, but at the same time, it's certainly not boring. So it fits the sound very well, and it's very complementary. Finally, there are some synths used on the album. They are used when needed, and they're not thrown in just to have synths. A lot of other kind of poppier bands will just throw synths in everywhere, but this is just where it's needed to add textures again and to set the mood. So it really adds to the song and adds to the album, and sets it apart from harder bands, but it also definitely stands out from poppy bands. Under the Silver of Machines was produced by Cameron, the singer, and it was very produced. I wouldn't say overproduced because it wasn't a bad thing, but it was very fine production. One thing I always noticed was the cymbals on the drums were very light and trebly, so it was a very poppy sound, and that really worked well for that album. It wasn't a bad thing by any means. The Heart and the Broken Compass, on the other hand, is not as perfectly produced, and I'm not saying it's underproduced. It's, again, just the other side of the band. They've kind of made the shift from a poppier sound to the harder sound of them. So it's a lot more raw and natural, I guess more of a hard rock production style. So again, it works very well with the band. It still complements all their aspects, and I think it was a good move for them. It made them a lot more mature. As far as the structure of the album goes, it flows pretty well, and I mentioned the contrast earlier. That was it's definitely noticeable through the flow of the album, and it really helps keep the listener's interest. The first song on the album is Copper Bones, which is upbeat, it's harder, it's melodic definitely, and from the intro to the chorus it kind of grows and progresses. The vocals kind of move up a bit in register and everything, so it really captivates the listener right from the beginning of the album, and it definitely sounds like the band right away. It's one of their typical songs, very trademark of the band. So it really shows who the band is right away and gets the listener involved and interested. So I think that was a very effective starting song. The last song on the album is called Arrows, and it's a ballad. It starts off with some synths and stuff and moves in. And personally, I think that this song would have been better off in the middle of the album, because, it's a ballad, it's a slower one. I think that they could have finished a bit better. I've heard that the thing that the listener always remembers is the beginning and the end of a performance or an album. So the beginning was good, the end could have been a bit better. I think if they had ended with, say, Architects or something, that would have been a better song. But I think Arrows belongs more in the middle. My favorite moments on the album are More Than You Know and The Northern Lights. These are two of the songs. More Than You Know is very catchy. I wouldn't call it a ballad, but it's catchy in that respect. It's got a guitar solo. I think it's the only one on the album, from what I can remember. But the guitar solo is very nice. It's not boring. I myself, as an accomplished guitarist, I like the solo. It moves around. It's very fitting for the song. It's melodic. So I think that was really nice. That's probably what makes me like the song so much. The other song I really like, The Northern Lights, starts off with a delayed riff on the guitar, which is really cool. And then the heavy band comes in along with that, and it's just very, in your face, I guess, there. So that's a interesting song. The guitar does lots of nice stuff again. It's groovy in the chorus. It's catchy, of course. So I think those two songs, definitely my favorites. I think they're very good to showcase the album. So my overall impression of the album is that it's definitely replayable. I've listened to it many times already, and I plan on listening to it many more. As a guitarist, I think, and a drummer, it's definitely worth jamming along to. I've played along to it on drums already, and it's worth looking at on guitar, which is atypical of a lot of rock bands. The riffs are very basic and simple, and the fact that, I would actually take the time to sit down and look at some of this stuff on guitar really speaks to the capabilities of the guitar players here. It's a very solid album. They took their time on this one, and it shows. You can tell that it wasn't thrown together hastily. It was well written, well done. They took their time and figured out what really worked for them. It's catchy, but at the same time it's not super generic. It's very interesting. I'm mainly a metal fan, and I love the album. So it works. It definitely works because it's catchy, and aside from some of the cheesy-ish lyrics, it's not super generic. So I think that this album can go both ways, rock or metal, and it kind of speaks to everyone. So that was really impressionable. Finally, the contrast between heavy and light, which I spoke on a few times, really makes the album solid. It provides a lot of interest. You hear a lot of straight-up heavy albums or lighter albums, but this album has both. It's got the lighter parts where everything kind of settles down, and then the heavier parts a couple screams I mentioned. So it's all around very nice. It kind of covers all the bases that I would want covered in an album of this genre. And they're all skilled musicians. Even the singer, who could use a bit of work on lyrics and higher stuff maybe, I think he's a pretty good fit for the band, and I hope he'll grow at least. But overall, they're all very skilled. They know what they're doing. They know how to put together a good album, and I would definitely recommend this album. Out of 10, I would give it 7.75. So check out this album, The Heart and the Broken Compass by Last Winter, and be sure to subscribe to my channel. Like me on Facebook to keep up to date, because I have multiple channels, so that kind of keeps everything together. And recommend any other albums or anything you'd like me to review. I'm pretty much into most genres, so I'm open to reviewing a lot of stuff. So if you have any ideas of anything you'd like to see, leave me a comment or a message. Let me know what you thought of this video and what you thought of the album, whether you liked it or not. And thanks for watching. Have a nice day.